welcome to Imbil at AXA Benchtops Rally Queensland. This is the last stage of the day.
Been amazing. As you can see, we're definitely out in the forest here. The dust is up. We've got a few spectators out, and actually a tricky little section here through the forest, dry and dusty.
What did you make of it? We walked down earlier. We just saw Harry Bates come through. He's the first car on road. What did you make when we just walked through here earlier?
A little bit hard to see on the opening shot, but it's a downhill, really difficult downhill right-hand hairpin. It's struggling to get the car turned. There's no attitude on the way in, so you sort of got the car neutrally balanced, which makes it hard for turning. I think we'll hear some cars attack it slightly different with the way their throttle percentage on. That's how we'll sort of judge it. Into the hairpin, beautiful through here. Actually way closer to the tree than I thought he was going to go on the apex, but he's had an amazing day for what's been a struggling couple of rallies. Pace has been there or thereabouts, but struggling in the championship. Today he's dominated, and to be honest, we've seen the biggest gaps of the year with just so much drama unfolding.
We certainly have. We didn't expect this to be, we knew it would be a tricky rally. We know these roads are hard here up in Gympie, but we weren't expecting to see the attrition that we've been seeing. I feel like every time we open the Subaru Rally Results Hub, somebody else is off the road. Yeah,
there's a drama, and it is that style of rally. It feels like you wanted to coach someone just to take it off, take 5% off and just ease your way through. It's a sprint day by the fact that we banked the points at the end of today, but there's been so much drama. We literally got almost like a minute in front at the moment. Lewis has had a disastrous day, limped through with some power steering issues. He may get up to potentially fourth, which is unbelievable. Earlier in the season, he probably wouldn't even got in the top 10, which is what happened to Harry in Tasmania. So, look, it is just one of those things. As we cycle through this stage now, we'll no doubt talk about some of the issues with some of the teams and the cars and what's happened. But what it has showed is the updates to that. The Toyota in regards to the engine side seems to be strong. Harry's found his rhythm. He's likely to bank. This is the last stage of today. So we've done 8 stages, 4 of them repeated twice. So they've been through this stage already. Repeat this one and bank it, and away he goes. So he's starting his championship sort of charge.
Now, speaking to Harry this morning, he said from the off he was approaching this with consistency in mind, banking those points, making sure that he was focusing on accuracy from his part and looking after the reliability and the mechanicals of the car. And that's really paid off. Even though we saw in SS2, he was actually pipped to the post by Luke and here by 9/10 of a second. So it was close, but it was interesting to see that he's actually putting that into practice and thinking long term now.
Yeah, well, he has to. But that's the thing. It's difficult to lead from the front. He's used to it from championships gone by, and in this one, like you said, got pipped by Luke, so he's not had it all his own way, but unfortunately Luke's had an issue and been off the road. So you can see now as it's getting a little bit in the evening that's still off, dust is going to be an issue through some of these stages. And a little bit of push there, actually. Just notice on the entry there, Lewis has come in and had the car just push sort of as the car came towards us. So, but the difficulty will be there is no breeze. I think as car goes by, and as we're talking and the gaps are falling through, the talking point at the end of the stage will no doubt be the dust for the teams.
You all watching live can probably see when we started this, we could quite clearly see all the groups of people who've gathered here at Imbil this afternoon to watch the action. Now I can see about 3 silhouettes in the background. The dust is certainly something that we weren't really talking about coming into the first stage this morning. Then we saw the 0 car set off on that first stage this morning. And we thought, oh, this is going to be bad. And pretty much straight away, they increased the gaps from 2 minutes to 3 minutes.
Yeah, so obviously that's a safety measure that's sometimes in play, particularly when the roads are dusty. The breeze then came up, to be fair. And look, saying that, we are in a little pocket here. It could be out in the stages. This is just one of those areas. So, hopefully that's the way they can finish off the day. But when it gets like this as a driver, and with a day like today where there are bigger gaps, you've just got to go as you can see at the end of the day. The other part of it is this is when someone with their pace notes, it's like fog. You've got to commit to your notes, be confident that you've got your distances right, the angles are right, the co-driver's on form, and that's part of the part of the thrill and the hard part of rallying.
The other thing that we need to factor in here is, of course, the light. It's late afternoon. We've got tree cover anyway, so it's going to be darker than if we were completely exposed. But as the sun's coming down, that's another thing that the crews who are running later are going to have to contend with.
Yeah, and the rally is actually running slightly behind at the moment because we had an incident on stage 5. Fortunately, Troy Dow and Bernie Webb, we believe, are okay. Not sure exactly what the issue was, but that sort of delayed the field. They actually have sent a bulletin out and allowing teams to run lights if they need be. As you can see, clearly the front running cars won't need them, but absolutely further down the field. And as we go into the Queensland Championship, they'll have spotlights on. The cars are mostly equipped with spotlights. I have the ability to put them on at some point, so they have allowed the teams to, with no penalty, be able to add them on. Seems they're out of service. But that's we're used to that in a lot of state series particularly. You do a lot of night stages, so it does become difficult in the dust, but it's not an unusual thing to be running in the night.
There are quite a few competitors coming to Queensland this weekend who haven't ever been here, and we're seeing that especially with the next few cars who we're expecting to come through. I say expecting because we've had lots of surprises today. The next few cars we're expecting to come through, we've got a group of Tasmanians coming, and these roads are all completely new to them, so it's been really good to see how they're coping with these changes, and having been in Western Australia and how drastically different those roads are there, and then coming here, they're doing really well.
Yeah, next one up, we're expecting Eddie Maguire, who's been third rally, third car. So if that's who comes into sight, he's on board the Skoda this time around, doing a great job. We saw him in Production Cup leading up to this area, so let's see how he runs through here. Getting more and more confident in that car. So that is the car that Troy Dow used for the opening 2 rounds. It's the car that Harry Bates used at Rally New Zealand WRC last year. So at the start of this season, we saw him in Tassie. Obviously, just stepped in at the last minute into one of the Buckby Motorsport hatches, do a great job in production, then got excited, went across to Perth in the Orange Motorsport, the ex-Molly Taylor car, and did a fantastic job, to be honest, on debut. This car, would you believe, he's gone, it's taking me longer to get used to. The R5 car, which is a international standard, but just the way the car pitches and moves is different to what he is used to. So I've been amazed at how he's just jumped in and adapted to the cars so far in the season. This has actually been, something that's tested him, but maybe that approach has worked, because at the moment he's in position 2, and he'll be likely to bank that come the end of this stage. So maybe that measured approach and not being fully used to the car might have actually worked in his favour, rather than an all-out attack, which we would normally have seen.
Very solid day for him. He was telling me earlier, when you hear people talking about coming from a slower car, a production cup car, into an R5 or similar, you talk about them, or they talk about everything happening much faster because these machines are at that level up. Whereas talking to him, he said, feels like everything's happening more slowly because the handling is just so good. And that's one of those differences when we jump into these kind of purpose-built Rally 2 machines, just the equipment that we know that those Skodas are very reliable as well. So it's been great talking to him and hearing his thoughts on how he's adapted. And as you said, it's been really good to see him go so solidly.
One of the differences are a production car is actually faster in a straight line. Turbocharged four-wheel drive car like a Subaru or an Evo are particularly faster in a straight line. The thing that the R5s or the AP4 cars, they got more suspension travel. So what that means, you can come in later under brakes, the car can handle the bumps more. That's the bit that changes your brain. So they're actually very torquey. They get up to speed quite quick, but their outright speed's not overly thrilling. But that's the part that you need to get used to. And he's finding himself feeling like he's coming in late. The car does everything he wants, but he's almost broken a little bit too early. You expect the production car with less suspension travel, you need to give yourself a bit more time on the approach to the corner. So he said, I get set up, the weight's on the nose, I go to turn in and I go, I think I'm not quite at the apex yet. So as you then sort of change your positioning on the brake, it affects it. Didn't do it here. It's a little bit what happened to Lewis on this corner. I said that Lewis pushed out. Eddie came in a bit more committed and had the car and had it sort of sat on that he could power on straight away. So you can sort of, on this corner, see some of the attitudes. There's actually quite a wide road on the approach there. So everyone will do a little bit different on how much they throw the car. It's quite a wide corner, there's a little bit of room for error, but everyone will approach it a bit different. And of course, as we see production cars later in the run, they'll potentially be different to the R5 cars or the cars with a bit more suspension travel.
Now let's remember, when we're talking about all these people who have issues, as we were earlier, this is a sprint round. Yeah. So they're going to get through today, there'll be results from today, and then it's a reset tomorrow. So all the people who've had issues today, we're hoping that they're going to be able to get a lot of them fixed and back out tomorrow so that we see these full fields again, because it's looking a little bit sparse at the end of today.
Yeah, and that is true, and that's one of the benefits of what we used to call the Super Series back in the day when the heat format came together. It'll be tomorrow, be a reset. Let's look at Nathan Quinn. He seems to always be battling a little bit. I mean, they just have a never give up attitude, which is why he's so strong as a competitor. They've been struggling the whole day with issues. I think they've just stopped in stage 6 and got going again. We hope to see them come through here, but they're dropping bulk time, wanting to get to the end, bank hopefully what points they can, fix it overnight, and then get going again. Daniel Gonzalez will potentially see him through. He was out after the first run, had a really good stage, 4th fastest on the opening stage, but a heavy impact off one of these sort of jumps or dips that he's misjudged has cracked the radiator, so he had to pull off to the side, couldn't go on and do 3 stages and get it back to service. So there is everybody with a little bit of a drama there coming back. So Gonzalez back in this afternoon, but won't feature in the points. He'll be getting himself set up for tomorrow, where he can have an actual proper attack on it.
There are a couple of cars in those top-seeded crews who aren't coming back tomorrow. We should mention Tom Clark, unfortunately, got approximately 300 metres into the first stage and then had to call it a day. I think it was a gearbox issue.
Well, they actually told me, they actually got going after we left this morning live. They did 3. It went into limp mode, they said, and then they reset all the computers and they got to the end of the stage 2 and they had some warning bells or some noise coming from. I think they've got a gearbox issue. They're going to try and get back out there tomorrow, depending what the team can do, if it's mechanical from that point of view. But, talk about just disastrous luck for them. I mean, I feel like I'm not going to talk to him anymore because I feel like we're jinxing him every time. He's just probably wanting to get through some stages, but he's not even getting to do that at the moment. Great team, good guys, good outfit. So it'd be lovely to see them come out tomorrow and just sort of bank a good day. Another one that springs to mind in the sister Ford in a way is Luke Kinnear, who is showing some real pace this year. He's been pretty impressive, to be honest, and probably in his own words, probably got a little bit overcommitted, and it's probably now on socials everywhere of his rollover. They're okay, which is great. Didn't give up. I think they would have been out there. They would have dropped today's result, but the car has a slight bit of damage to the roll cage, so that's sort of one of the things. So then safety comes first, and they'll no longer be able to run in the event. But he's taken a stage win off former champion, and so he's showing some really good pace, and hopefully I can get that fixed between now and the next round and come back as just as strong.
If you haven't seen it, make sure you check out the video and the interview afterwards with Luke of his incident. Thankfully, as you said, both he and Malcolm Reed are absolutely fine. It was only their ego that was a little bit bruised after that, but it was a fairly spectacular roll. So make sure you head to the ARC social channels because they are up there. It should be on Facebook and Instagram, so you can catch up with that and all the other content that we've grabbed so far over the weekend. As we hear another car coming in, I felt like there was a slight delay between Eddie Maguire coming through in this next car now.
We're being tricked a little bit by the time delays, etc. But let's see who comes into shot here. And there's Daniel Gonzalez in the Skoda. Let's have a look at him through here. Had a couple of goes at the corner there. You can sort of see the difference now of Eddie, who came in one foul swoop, got it dialed in. Daniel had a couple of goes early, got it tied up, and then had a really big reef on the handbrake to get it set up for this right-hander. So even in this small section, you actually get to see some differences between it. 2 R5 cars there in regards to the Skoda. Daniel trying to do as many events, come off the back of a win after the Forest Rally, won round 3 of the West Australian Championship. He'll be disappointed in regards to the fact that he's not doing the kilometres. But, like I said, putting in some solid stage times will be set to try and go for a good run at it tomorrow.
Absolutely. Coming back in tomorrow, as we were just talking about, reset overnight. You work quite closely with him. We know that he is a meticulous preparer. He really likes looking at the onboard, studying the notes, making sure that he's learned as much as he possibly could. From a driver's perspective, where's the balance? Where's the balance between preparing as well as you possibly can to where you've overdone it to the point where now you're just overthinking everything?
It's probably down to the individual, to be fair. I mean, the technology's changed a lot from when I drove, for instance. The onboards we have were done by the TV stations, etc., as opposed to having our own. And nowadays you can film very easily, and the technology's there. I think you have to now do some of that in regards to studying it, getting used to the notes. I was always scared to change too much from the way you viewed a video versus what you see on the stages because it's a different viewpoint. But it is something you'll see. Harry does it, Lewis does it, everybody at the pointy end does it. But it is a balance then between too much and gaining experience. The thing that I think we talked to Daniel about is that he's on this sort of university fast track in regards to doing Australian Rally Championship. He hasn't been rallying for very long at all, to be fair. So the fact that he can even be in there and mixing it, he's done an exceptional job. He's quite talented behind the wheel, done some circuit racing. But now it's the balance between just getting the events. It's probably the events experience that he needs to do now more so than the skill set behind the wheel. He's learnt the art. He sort of knows how to tackle some of the terrain. He can put in some good stage times. He now just has to bank kilometres in events in these situations, and that's where the experience comes in.
We talk about it we could liken it to tennis. We talk about match fitness. It's such a different dynamic and such a different mental game when you're coming in from having just practiced and you can do you can do all the practice in the world in a rally car if you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
But it's very different
Yeah.
coming in and being in this competitive environment and putting yourself under that pressure. And I feel like he does put a fair bit of pressure on himself to perform.
Well, absolutely it does. And the other part you got to remember, when they go and do the reconnaissance, you're doing it at 60 k's an hour. Now out here, you're approaching these roads of upwards of 180 kilometres an hour. It's different. And that's where the experience comes in. Talked about the Tasmanian. How good is a sounding car that is.
It sounds awesome. You know the crowd behind us just really appreciate it.
It's an older generation Subaru. It's got that real boxer sound that we've sort of come used to from old, 20 years ago rallies. What an amazing story though. He's done an amazing job. He was the star of the show in a lot of ways at opening round. I don't think he planned to do the rest of the ARC. Gets a helping hand from Neil Bates, who said, hey, if you can get to Perth, I'll put it in my truck for nothing, and help out and get you across there. But he really struggled in Perth. And you and I spoke to him on a couple of occasions, and he was really upset and on darkening himself about just not being able to get, I don't know whether it was used to the roads or the way that his notes were. But here he's come in, and he's banked some good times, but now has found himself staying out of trouble and likely to get a podium today, which is an amazing effort. So he's had the highs and the lows of the Australian Rally Championship all in 3 rounds.
He really has. We talk about the highs and the lows of motorsport a lot. And speaking to Bodie over in WA, my heart wanted to break for him because you could see how much it meant for him to be there. Yeah. And he really felt like he owed it to the people who'd helped him get there, including Neil Bates. And then to have the results that he did and the struggles that he did, it was just heartbreaking. So it's really good speaking to him today and seeing that big smile back on his face that we saw in Launceston, because he's such a great character to have in this sport.
Oh, fantastic. But I think the other thing is that he just kept on trucking along. Didn't damage the car, didn't end up going off the road because he wasn't, all there. He was able to actually gauge his speed. He wasn't happy with the speed, but he was able to gauge it to be able to come and make sure his car survived. Because when you're on a tight budget, you're one accident, one drama, one mechanical away from not being able to be at the next round. So, that was probably the part that was impressive as well. Though, and I think we said that to him as well. Just keep in there. The fact that you're still fighting away and not giving up is going to be key. And he'll get just deserved. Good team. They're all behind it, and he's got lots of support in the service park. So the fact that he can now hopefully deliver this for them, get a podium in an older car, he's just played it perfectly today, and that's pretty impressive.
The Production Cup is actually looking pretty spicy this weekend. The fight over certainly today's heat has been fairly intense between Bodie, who we just saw, Steve Maguire, and Ryan Williams was up there, but unfortunately he had some dramas. Yeah,
well, and like I said, he was really excited after stage 3. Local, new to the four-wheel drive turbo scene. We saw him obviously cutting his teeth in front-wheel drive in the junior category against the likes of Max McRae back in the day. Very fast, but obviously, now that the sort of series has moved on, he's picked up this older generation Subaru, and only probably 3 rallies in. Pretty impressive on the speed, as you said, fighting it and being at the point end. It looks like he had an incident in stage 4, tipped it over, was missing the rear wing, he's got the taped up rear screen, dropped time. So unfortunately, like I said, probably in a bit of a rebuilding phase for this heat. But showing speed, and the car seems to be all square, that, once again, he'll be able to reset for tomorrow and be a part of that fight, which is pretty impressive as well. But picking the fact that this is his home round and he knows the roads quite well, so he's trying to play to his strengths in that as well.
It's been really good to have him back in the championship this weekend. It's been a while between drinks for him. We did have him over in WA, but he experienced life from our side. Of
he did too, actually.
He was helping us in TV, so it was really good to have him there.
That's how good an impression we were. He's now back behind the wheel of the car, so we made a big impression.
I think he decided that life on this side of motorsport was not for him, and he's back in the driver's seat, but really good that he and his co-driver Brad Jones could come back and do this rally here this weekend.
It's also the beauty of the fact that we have the different categories in there, because here you go, in an outright terms, they're still fighting and being able to get a podium, but also battle against each other, and we can sort of judge that based on, like you said, the Evo, Mitsubishi, Subaru battle, the production side of things. So I think that's the great thing about the championship as well, is there are tiers in there in regards to front wheel drive and juniors and then production cup, but you play in the overall game at the same time, so you're always learning, and they can fight each other in there. 2 young guys who are competitive and really quick drivers, and as you can see, even the way the car will come through, Bodie's car through here versus some of those newer generation cars, it just handles different. The suspension's a little different, the cars are potentially a little bit heavier and stuff like that. They've got advantages, and they've come from a pedigree of many good rally cars. But it's a good part of the sport.
Absolutely. The other good part of the sport, or one of the many good parts of the sport, is the fact that spectators get to come out. And yeah, they're in a cloud of dust at the moment, but they're loving it. And as we just said, the spectators would have just loved seeing Bodie coming through because that car sounded awesome. But getting up and being able to get as up close and personal with the sport as you are, because we head back to the Rally Central. Sorry, had a brain fade. We head back to Rally Central this afternoon, and the crowds there are fantastic. They've got so much to do. There's plenty of food stores, there's plenty of entertainment. The sponsors are all able to activate, and everybody can see the crews at work, have a chat to the teams, have a chat to the drivers. And yeah, being able to get this close to the sport is really special.
These are the hardcore fans. Because we saw last night, we had the cars all beautiful on display in the main street. I think I spoke to the mayor of Gympie. He said we think we had 8,000 people there. It was fantastic. As a region, they loved it. The service parks and the showgrounds. We've got some amazing cars, and you get great accessibility to the teams and the drivers who are happy to talk to you about and show you around the cars and bits and pieces, because we're passionate about the sport and it is very accessible. So, you know, that Rally Central area there is a great place to come down and see the cars being worked on. Some of them who are limping in, being damaged, and you know, some of the teams do an amazing job. You know, this lunchtime service is 30 minutes. They perform some miracles sometimes to get the cars back out there to perform at their best. So that's sort of part of it as well.
There was plenty to see in the service park earlier, and Kick-Ass Products are sponsoring Rally Central. So make sure if you're in Gympie, you head down and check out the service park, because there's, as we said, there's plenty to do down there. And Wheels on Mary last night was just an excellent event, I thought.
Oh yeah, and the region get right behind it. They obviously love having big events here, and this is a big event. So you know, you can see them really lap it up. Next car down. Let's have a look at this. Is Peter Rouleau. Peter Rouleau there with Ben Cersei on board, regular co-driver Jimmy Marquette still away in Europe after being married, so not bad when you can put a former Australian champion co-driver on board. Peter and Alex, Alex's son, they're in the sister cars. Alex out with an issue earlier on, has tagged the left rear and done some damage to the suspension, so he hasn't been back out. He was disappointed with that because I think it was on stage 2. So he's just lacking a few miles as well. So it's sort of one of those people showing some good speed and, like you said, stepping out from circuit racing to rallying. But Peter's doing a good job. And like I said, Peter can steer, by the way. He's won a couple of Targa West. He's no dummy when it comes to this. But learning gravel rallying, hasn't been doing that for that long. But great to have 2 very current modern Hyundai i20s in the field, you know, R5 cars. And same thing, you can just sort of see him being a little bit more tentative than the likes of Harry and the likes of Eddie coming through that corner. But once again, we'll bank a good result after today.
Beautiful cars, those Hyundais, and he's another one, as we just touched upon, who's using that consistency to his advantage. While other people are having the issues, he's chipping away, he's banking solid times and solid results. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up at the end of today, and also how he consolidates that tomorrow. Don't miss the action tomorrow. We are live on 7+ with the E-Road Power Stage from 2 p.m. Eastern Time. But until then, you can follow the ARC social channels and the Subaru Rally Results Hub at rally.com.au. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon.